Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. I'm Joey, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Steam Deck OLED. I called this a review, but honestly, let's just talk about it, because I don't want to be pigeonholed into doing certain sections for D-pad tests and all of that. Honestly, I just want to make a video and just talk about the Steam Deck OLED, why I bought it, why I like it, and go from there. So let me just lead this off with saying that I absolutely love the Steam Deck OLED. And that might be a surprise to anybody that's followed me because you know that I didn't really like the LCD deck. So let's back up and we'll talk about everything. I don't think any of my reasons will be shocking to anybody, but I had major deal breakers with the LCD deck, and it just caused me to jump ship, and I even bought the damn thing 3 different times trying to make it work. It just wasn't for me. First, the screen was awful. Like, awful. And I don't mean the resolution, I can live with 800p, but the actual colors, the saturation, all of that, it was just bad. For an IPS panel, it wasn't good compared to really anything else in the market. The second was the fan noise, and no matter what fan I purchased, no matter what revision of the Steam Deck I bought, no matter what I did to try and get that fan to just shut up, it just did not. So, had a big issue with the fan noise, and it just bothered me a lot. Third, it was the battery life, and while the Steam Deck battery life wasn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination, it still wasn't where I wanted it to be if I was going to have to make that switch over to that device and make the other compromises. So this is kind of just a little bit of a nitpick, but still wasn't a perfect enough battery for my use cases. Then lastly, there's the weight. It was just too heavy and bulky. The actual device is already big as it is. Add in all of that weight and suddenly you're like, I don't know if this is going to be for me. My only other gripe was Linux, and me and Linux just don't get along. I'm a Windows person, I'll always be a Windows person, so if I could get a handheld with Windows on it, that's going to be my first choice for 9 out of 10 times. The handheld has to do some really good things for me to overlook not having Windows, especially since I found the actual desktop mode to be a complete chore on the deck, and you have to go into it a lot, and it's just not a good time for me. And then we come to the Steam Deck OLED, and while it didn't solve every one of my issues, it solved most of them. And it made it a pretty much night and day comparison between the LCD deck and the OLED version. I keep seeing a sentiment online that the differences are so minimal, and this isn't a huge upgrade and all of that sort of thing. And to hell they are. This is the biggest night and day revision that I've seen in a handheld in a long time. Even the Nintendo Switch OLED wasn't a big switch as this was. And for the most part, it's because it did one thing. It took it from a handheld that I had pretty much zero interest in because I've been happy with my Ally, to a handheld that now is replacing my Ally, and I don't think I'm going to be going without it. So let's just go through the list of what changes they made as far as things that I care about, and just talk about what those differences are. The first, obviously, is it fixed the screen. It made it an OLED screen, it added 90 Hz, and while it's still 800p and not exactly the best of resolutions that you can look at in 2023, it's still a beautiful screen, and you can still do everything that you need to do on the normal deck, just now with a lot better color accuracy and all of that. Honestly, I can live with 800p for another year or so until we get the actual Deck 2 or whatever new devices are going to come out. Something that competes with this in this form factor would be great, but until then, I can live with this. It's not a big issue. Because honestly, 1080p with this processor wouldn't really make a lot of sense for a lot of the newer games that are coming out anyways. The fan noise is the biggest change to me. It went from a Boeing 747 to absolute silence. Like, right now, nothing. There's absolutely nothing except for the vent smell, but it doesn't smell as good as the LCD deck. Either way, it's just silent. You can't hear anything. If I play a game on it, I don't hear anything. There's only been 2 or 3 times that I've actually heard the fan on this thing. One of them was weird. I was just downloading a lot of Steam games and it's turned on and I could hear it a little bit. And then the second time was when I was pushing it for PlayStation 2 emulation to compare it to the Odin 2, which, spoiler for an upcoming video, should be an interesting comparison. But for the most part, I just never hear the fan, and I've had to check it multiple times just to make sure it's actually working, and it is, but it's just a weird change compared to the LCD deck where it's constant. You always hear it, but this, nothing. again, the battery life wasn't terrible on the original deck, but with the OLED deck, it's so much better. It's a night and day difference once again. It made it to a point where I just don't care what the actual battery is anymore. I can just use the device as is, occasionally look at it and be like, yeah, I still have another day left, and then go charge it the next day. It's gotten to that point where it just doesn't matter. So that's the whole thing about the battery life, is once you get to a certain point with battery, you stop kind of caring about it. It's just that good. And that's where I think the OLED deck has gotten to, where you just don't worry about it. You can charge whenever you want. It has enough battery to get you through normal play sessions, and it's perfect for that. And then we have the weight, and the actual weight of this is, I think Valve said, about 30 grams or so less than the LCD deck, but it's more than that, because, and I wish I had the LCD deck, because unless I've been eating a lot of Big Macs since that time and gotten my arm strength up quite a bit, this feels a night and day difference to what the LCD deck I remember being. I don't know if they made some changes to the weight distribution, which I'm pretty sure they did, because it just feels a lot better on that front. It doesn't feel as heavy as the LCD deck did. It's just spread out a lot better. And for me, that's a big difference. I could feel it instantly as soon as I picked it up. It was like, yeah, this feels great. But you could go even further than that, because the actual limited edition version is even less than this. And I weighed it, and I'll put a picture on the screen, but it was, I think, 20 or so grams more or less weight on the limited edition than the actual OLED 512. So you could go even further down that road. Now, my limited edition had a dead pixel, and I returned it, and I just like this better. For some reason, some things on the limited edition just felt different in a bad way. And the actual anti-glare screen just didn't do anything for me, because I don't really play in any situation where I have a lot of light, so not really a concern for me. But then we get to the one thing that hasn't changed, and that's Linux. And every time I step into the desktop mode for SteamOS or whatever, I just want to throw this thing against the wall, because I just can't stand Linux. It feels like the we have Windows at home equivalent, and I just absolutely hate it. It's not for me. And for those that say that you don't have to go into desktop mode a lot, that's a complete lie. I'm in desktop mode almost every day to do something. Whatever it is, I gotta go make a change. It's EmuDeck this day, it's updating the other day, it's whatever it is, but some days I'm in there quite often, and it's a chore for me to do it, because I just hate that interface. I hate what Linux makes you do. Everything takes longer than Windows. It just takes so much longer, so I'm not into it. But my major gripe with Linux, because I could handle all of the other stuff, I'll get used to it, it's fine, I'll make do. But my major gripe with Linux is that I can't do Game Pass games natively. And for me, I play Game Pass games quite a bit on my Ally, on the go, on my computer. So I'm using Game Pass games often, because in my mind, Game Pass is probably the best deal in gaming right now. And not having access to that is kind of a bummer on the deck. Obviously, this could be changed by me dual booting into Windows, but we don't have the drivers yet for Windows to do really anything, so I'm kind of waiting for that. But as of right now, I really do wish that we had native support for Game Pass, because it would be so much better. SteamOS as a whole is pretty easy to use. I'm not going to say it's my favorite front end, but I can see why people gravitate towards it, even though it's literally just Steam Big Picture with an extra control panel. But yeah, I don't want to say the control panel isn't good, because it actually is the best that we have, and a lot of other manufacturers could take notice of what Valve is doing here. So it's really good. It's awesome to just be able to change everything on the fly, do per app settings, and all of that fun stuff. On the actual front end part, I vastly prefer Play Night to what SteamOS has going on the home page. Even after customizing it with CSS Loader and adding a theme and making some changes there to try and get it to what I want it to be, it's still not there, and the out-of-the-box experience is not great in my opinion. The SteamOS front end could be pretty laggy, especially if you have a lot of games installed, and I have a 2TB installed in my deck, and so I have a lot of games installed, and so it ends up being quite laggy, especially on the homepage. But my actual issue is just the lack of customization, because out of the box with the default experience, half of your page is taken up by ads, a what's new page, friends, advertisements for certain things, and I don't care about any of that. This just reminds me of Microsoft's Xbox homepage with just advertisements everywhere. And I think people are okay with it because it's Steam and Steam can do no wrong. But if you were to look at this from any other perspective, you'd be like, why can't I just make it a grid of library items? And I know you can change that, but I'd rather have my homepage look like it is now and just get rid of all that crap at the bottom, because I don't think it helps anybody. And it definitely doesn't help me because I don't look at any of that. I don't want it. So the ability to customize your homepage further would be great. Not going to say it's a huge negative, but it is something that's a little weird to see in advertisements just everywhere. But my main gripes coming into SteamOS was that if you don't actually use Steam games, so if you have games on Epic, GOG, elsewhere, Quacked games for those people that are doing that, it's not a great experience. And obviously Valve wants you to buy Steam games. They didn't make this out of the goodness of their hearts. They want you to actually get into that ecosystem, buy more Steam games, and they could not have made it easier for you to do so. It's obviously very easy. They've set it up so that if you're using Steam games, you get all of the benefits of the Steam Deck and community layouts, all of that fun stuff. So it makes absolute sense why you would buy Steam games. And I had to convert most of my library over to Steam games to get the full intended Steam Deck experience. And I get it. Games are better that way. It's a better experience when I did that, and it made the deck seem a little bit better in my eyes. But I don't like that, because now I'm kind of tied into one specific store for games. And while Steam is obviously the best store out there for PC games, it's still the fact that I'm locked into one single store that I don't like. I don't like that feeling of just being locked into Steam, no matter how good it is. Because if we turn this around and used Epic's name instead of Steam, people would be very angry. But it's the fact that it's Steam that nobody cares. I'm not on that boat. I want to just be able to play games from any different store. I don't care about the launchers. Games are fine to me. So just let me play them, and I wish they worked a little bit better on the deck than just normal Steam games do. But anyways, when I combine all of the good things about the Deck OLED and everything that I like about it, it ends up being in a spot where it's basically replaced my other major handhelds. So I mean my Ally, my Go, all of that. It's the one that I'm going to be taking with me anywhere I go as far as traveling, all of that. It's the go-to. It's the one device that I need to play anything that I want. The Ally was never super comfortable to me. It was comfortable enough, but it was never just there. The Go is not comfortable at all to me. This is very ergonomic, very comfortable. I could play this for hours. I don't have an issue. So I like that. And the only thing missing from this experience for me is Windows, like I mentioned before. So as soon as we get proper drivers for it, I'm going to be dual booting, and probably for the first time that I've had a deck, not replacing the entire SteamOS. So let's talk use cases and what I actually do with my deck over other devices. And for me, this is basically an indie machine. So I'm playing a lot of Brotato, Vampire Survivors, Stardew Valley, those kind of games, Dead Cells, Hades, all of that, because they play fantastic on here, they look great, and I just have a very good experience playing them here. And then we get to the emulation side, and this is basically my Nintendo 64, Wii, GameCube, PlayStation 2, and all of that sort of machine. However, as you might find out in an upcoming video, Secondies, it might not play them as well as the Odin 2, and that was a bit surprising to me. But even still, it's a good experience to just play them on here, and I kind of gravitate between the Odin 2 and the deck for all of those games. Haven't really set on which one that I like more. Nintendo 64 plays a little bit better on here because of achievement support through RetroArch. A lot of games that aren't compatible on Android for achievements are compatible here. Now, as for the other emulators, so Wii U, PS3, Xbox, Xbox 360, and all of that, I don't find them to be a really good experience on the deck, and I don't really like them on the PC either because the emulators just aren't there yet for the most part, without Wii U being an exception. So I kind of avoid those, but you could play them on here if you wanted to. It's just, for me, not a great experience. And that also goes for the Switch, because I have a Switch, so I'm not going to emulate the Switch. It's just not something I like. I'm not a big fan of Switch emulation in general, so I'm just going to stick to my Switch for actual Switch emulation. But again, if you wanted to do Switch emulation, you definitely could on this device. It's just not for me. But then lastly, the big one is streaming. Using Chiaki for Deck with HDR support to stream my PS5, XB Play to stream my Xbox One S, or my go-to Moonlight to stream my PC games from my PC. Remember when I said in my PlayStation Portal review that other devices do streaming better than the Portal and with more features and all of that? Yeah, HDR support was on the Deck within 2 weeks of the OLED releasing, and now I can stream games even better than the Portal does. It already did that, but now I have actual HDR support too. Not to mention the fact that I can do XP Play and Moonlight and all of the other stuff. And yeah, I use Moonlight Streaming for my PC quite a bit. Because no, I'm not going to be playing Elden Ring at 30 FPS. I'm not going to be playing Starfield at 20 FPS. I'm not going to be playing any newer AAA game on my Deck at lower than medium settings, 40 FPS. Even 40 FPS hurts me to do, and it's because in the back of my mind, I know that if I walk 10 feet, I could play at maxed out settings at 165 Hz and no compromises. And there's nothing wrong with the people that want to do that on the Deck and have no issues with those compromises. But for me, it just doesn't make sense to do when I have a better PC sitting there that I could just stream from, and I have no issues doing that. Because I do think that the Deck's lack of power has become a bit noticeable in 2023. It's obviously not as good as the Ally or the Go is, and it's a bit further behind in that point, but it's something that hopefully we can get an upgrade to in the next Deck that'll just make it a lot better, because even when it came out, it still wasn't the best chip out there for handheld usage. But obviously it's really good for 10 watt and under. Honestly though, with the state of AAA games and ports nowadays, I don't even think it matters, because I can't think of a single game that came out this year that had an exceptionally good port without any issues and all of that, and would run with my standards on the Deck anyways. So it might just be a thing where I should just avoid AAA games anyways and stick to my indies and older games to be able to run them at a good speed on the Deck. But honestly, technology didn't advance this far for me to play 20 FPS games in 2023. It's just not going to happen. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Deck OLED. For me right now, it's the one to beat as an all-in-one gaming machine, just does everything you need, jack of all trades, essentially. Still not perfect for me. I need my Windows drivers for it to be perfect so I can go ahead and dual boot and all of that fun stuff, but it's close enough that I could just make it my one and only at the moment. But all in all, I'm finally on the Steam Deck train, and I'm excited to see what they do next with the Deck 2. That's going to be it for this one. Let me know in the comments below, especially if you upgraded from the LCD Deck to the OLED Deck, what your experiences have been, or if you're coming from something else, how you like the OLED Deck. Did it meet your expectations? Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow, and hope you all have a good one.